Welcome to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. We are talking about Celtic 2, Aberdeen 1. This is the full-time reaction show, and I'm joined by Lawrence Conley in a State of Mind studio and Brian Degnan, who is fighting through the illness to be involved today, and we do appreciate it, Brian. We'll talk about the full game as we go through this full-time reaction programme. But let's have a wee chat about the character there. I turned round to Lawrence at 70 minutes and says to him, this would be a completely different story had we not got that goal. But what a goal it was to get. And I do have on my notes here that McCarthy looked as though he was knackered at this stage. But he played a big part in that, Brian. He played a big part in the lead up to that goal. What a pass to Abada.
He did, yeah, and it was pleasing to see him last the full 90 minutes, actually, although he did look a wee bit out. I don't know, maybe I was harsh on him in the first half when I said he hadn't really had a massive influence, because I suppose if he's doing his job right, he's stopping Aberdeen doing much. And I don't think other than obviously the corner at the end and the penalty, they never really done much. I never really felt we were in danger. They spent, a lot of the game defending, and I don't think it was they're only doing what Livingston done and played anti-football and sitting in. We were pushing them in just with the pressing and the authority. And yeah, I thought McCarthy showed good character to see that out. And speaking of characters, the work ethic for Kyogo is out. I mean, it's mad that for a striker that never had a shot and goal, that never really touched the ball that often, and yet what an impact he had in the result today. He was tireless, he was brave, he was excellent, and yet, it was all about off the ball. But throughout the team, great character. Big Tony said it the other week on the podcast. I think we're looking a lot more resilient, and I think that came across today.
That's a great point about Kyogo, and there are several comments coming through talking about him. He's a selfless character, Lawrence. We'll get on to Kyogo in a wee second, but yes, I have been flying the McCarthy flag. It's another 90 minutes under the belt for him, and that's just what we need between now and January. There's a lot of games to play in December before we can get reinforcements, so we need the likes of McCarthy to be contributing.
Yeah, I mean, another 10 games to go before we can get anyone in. Listen, I think Brian's hit the nail on the head. I think he absolutely limited what Aberdeen were able to do. And, that's what you want from your defensive midfielder, to be in the place to stop, players from showing. He's cutting out the channels. I thought it was great. The pass lead up to the goal, maybe Abada should have done better to finish. But, McGregor's charged it down. We've got a bit of luck. But, listen, we could have scored 3 or 4 more there today. A sure performance. Mind you, at the end, I'm shouting at the screen at Mikey Johnson. That's the same mistake. He's running at the defender.
Yeah.
You're like, Mikey, time's up. Run for the corner flag.
Absolutely.
Don't go to the defender, because you might lose the ball and they might get another chance. Just go to the corner flag. But then again, that one he closed down, and I didn't see the foul. Apparently, it was called back for a foul by Kyogo. But, I didn't see that because the camera went away by that time. But it looked to have taken the ball off the boy's feet, looked to be by him, and then the ref blew. You're going, well, bit of a late whistle there, ref. What about Kyogo taking a slap in the face? Is it violent conduct? Hitting someone in the face and meaning to? I don't know. The ref didn't seem to think so. But, great 3 points. It's one of those games, Aberdeen at home. We've seen easy games, 9-0 against Mark McGee, or coming back and winning 4-3 with a Sammy overhead. But I don't think we're ever in danger of losing that. Bit nervous at the end because there's only one goal in it when the corner comes in. But all in all, a really sure performance. I think Carter Vickers strolled it. Welsh, he's willing to take the ball early. Juranovic a couple of times, I think if it'd been a left-sided player, he'd have moved the ball quicker. He just looked a wee bit awkward. Tony Ralston, another cracking game, wasn't it? You touched on it. McCarthy getting 90 minutes into his legs. I just thought, really sure performance from him. Cal Mack, doesn't matter where he plays, does it? He just puts on a cracking performance.
Again, tireless, and a lot of the work he's doing is the dirty work, Lawrence. They're not highlights of the game, but it's absolutely so important for that kind of work to be done. A bit like Kyogo, all over not even the front third. Kyogo, I mean, the point was made by Brian, but he's coming deep. He's in his own half. It's going to pay off what he does when he charges the goalie. You see, when the keeper gets the ball at his feet and he's about 20 or 30 yards away from him, but he charges him and he goes at some pace and he jumps up, hopefully getting a ricochet. And you know that is going to happen at some point. It's going to pay off at some stage. The work rate of Kyogo and McGregor and Ralston, to be fair, is absolutely frightening. They're so important to this team, Lawrence.
Definitely. Well, and I think that's perhaps Ange's looking to them, saying, look, inspire the other guys. If you put in the work rate, you'll lift their game. David Turnbull, that wee kind of lofty pass thing he does, it makes it easy for McGregor to take it in his chest because there's no pace on the ball, if you know what I mean. Kyogo, man, just everywhere, wasn't he? He was everywhere. Jota, I think that was only, Abada was a bit quiet. Jamesy was good when he came on. Jota was the only sub really left that we could make that was still going to give us something. I'd have maybe brought Montgomery on for him rather than Mikey Johnston. I thought, Mikey done okay, but that decision at the end, I was, just kind of horrified with him, going, like, just see it out, just run at the corner flag, don't run at defender. But, great 3 points to get. But I think we're all kind of counting down the games now to the transfer window. We just need to keep picking up these points.
Absolutely, yeah. And you were literally shouting at the screen when Mikey got the ball, because we all knew he had to go out wide on the left, but he tried to go through the two bodies, which was the wrong decision, and he's lost the ball. And at that stage of the game, because it was the last part of the action, you've only got 10 seconds to see the game out. He's 22. It's not like he's 17 or 18. He should know by now, hit the corner flag. But we'll run through, as you say there, Lawrence, the big thing is that lack of depth. I mean, you take off Jota, you replace him with Mikey Johnson, and you're coming down various levels, and it shows. If you were to take off Kyogo there and bring on a Yeti, as we did with seconds to spare, it's going to affect, you see the work rate of Kyogo. A Yeti doesn't have that in his locker. Abada for Forest, you're happy with that. We've got two decent right backs, but, there's so many positions on that part. And I think that within 2 minutes of the game, let's go back to the first incident of the game. When Hart is lying down, we're not quite sure what's wrong with him. It's like he's had a body shock. He can't, he's got issues with his legs as well as his upper body. Bain's getting stripped, and you just get a cold chill because you think, no, we don't want this. We really don't, because it is basically going from your first choice goalie to someone who possibly shouldn't be the second choice. And you're kind of praying for January to come, because there's so many positions like that. For example, someone at halftime was saying that Welsh should come off. If Welsh comes off at that stage, and I'm glad he didn't, but if he comes off at that stage, you're relying on Liam Scales at that point, Brian, who we've not really seen much from. We signed him for £500,000 from Shamrock Rovers. Seems to be a project of sorts, a bit like Liam Shaw and Uragide, where they're not going to be first picks. It might take them 6, 12, 18 months to bed in, if that. So at that point, you're seeing just how thin we are in the central defensive area. When Hart goes down, you're seeing how thin we are in the goalkeeper area. When Kyogo or Jota comes off and they're replaced by a Yeti and Mikey Johnson, we can see it again. So the January window is going to be huge. My big concern, Brian, is we don't get all the bodies in that we're going to require.
Yeah, I think Colin said it a couple of weeks ago. We need probably about 6 players. Now, that might seem hyperbolic, but and to be fair, I don't think we can be shocked by it either, because I remember, in the summer, when we were talking about Angie, even before Angie came in, and we said we could need up to maybe 13, 14 players. I know technically we get 12, but if you consider, Liam Scales, Liam Shaw, Uragide, they're not going to be first teamers, so yeah, you're talking 8 or 9. So yeah, I think we need more. I think we need definitely, as I said before, the game, we need a backup keeper. I think we need a first choice left back, because I think Juranovic, I think he's a quality player, but there is an imbalance for him at left back, and you can see it with some of his crossing, because he's not actually crossing off his left, he's cutting in, and you can see it. As good a player as he is, I don't think you're seeing what he's capable of, because he's out of position. So I think we need a first choice left back, and certainly we need a couple of centre mids. I don't think we need a number 6, because Callum can play that role as well.
Yeah,
I feel looks as if he's maybe coming back into things. Beaton we spoke about, but I do think we need a couple of really strong kind of attacking mids. Just more pressure off the ball, because I thought Turnbull was pretty decent today, but you can see, that if you imagine having two centre mids that press the way Kyogo does or the way Jota does, the difference that would make to us in transitioning defence into attack. And so that's 4 right away. You probably need a striker because Ayeti's not going to cut it. You need somebody else for Jota, a left winger. So there's your first 6. And even then, you're still thinking, if we get 2 good players for every position, I'm not sure. So a lot of work to be done. But hopefully, Andrew's been quite confident in that this is going to be a much easier transfer window than his first and his January's generally are. So fingers crossed, really.
No, definitely. But again, there's so much when you look at that Celtic team to be happy with, Lawrence. You look at the backbone of the team, and I would include Cameron Carter-Vickers in that. So you've got Joe Hart at the back, and I've heard the cliche that he's always going to have a mistake on him, X, Y, and Z. But I tell you what he brings to the table is far greater. You've got Cameron Carter-Vickers, who's putting in performance after performance, week on week, domestically and in Europe. And you're thinking to yourself, in terms of the low knees, we're all getting very excited about Jota. Let's not forget about Cameron Carter-Vickers at the back. We've got to make that permanent. He's your first choice. He's your first pick. When every central defender we have is fit, he's still your first pick. And then you look at Callum McGregor. Again, the consistency, the work rate, unbelievable. You've got Ralston solid on the right hand side of the defence. Up front, you've got the flamboyance of Kyogo, and on the left, Jota. And then you've got Forrest coming back in. There's so much to be positive about in this side, Lawrence. And I just think that we'll get to that point in January if we really go out and strengthen. And I don't mean, as I've said a few times on the podcast, like for like, because I expect us to lose 3 or 4. If we only bring in 3 or 4, we're still going to be running short. So I think this opportunity in January, if you've got a manager like Ange who can turn a player like Ralston into the guy that we've seen again today, who was brilliant today, absolutely superb, who can get a tune out of Beaton, probably in his natural position for the first time since about 2016 or 17. That I would say is the best we've seen him since that period. And then you're getting performances out of Tommy Rogic that we've not seen for a few seasons. Then I reckon you've got to put your trust in this manager. And if the manager wants 4 or 5 players, I know Colin says 6, I don't disagree with him. I just find it unlikely that we go out and get another 6. If he needs 4 or 5, you go out and you get those 4 or 5, because this manager has worked absolute wonders with what he's got, Lawrence.
Listen, I think everyone, even the board, although they don't agree with fans in much, would agree that we're way ahead of where we expected to be this time of year. So I think a lot of that's down to Ange, and they do have to back him. I mean, Brian's right. We were looking at, in terms of attacking midfield, we're looking at subs that could change the game.
Yeah.
Forrest was an easy one. Then we're going, well, it's going to have to be Jota, but he's not really done anything to get brought off. He dropped out the game a wee bit, but actually we're bringing him off because we don't have that attacking midfielder just now to put on to replace Turnbull. Mm-hmm. We don't have somebody to change it. So we're going, well, we've only really got Montgomery or Johnston. I was shouting for Montgomery to come on rather than Johnston. But it shows how thin we are when we're going, we're having to lose somebody like Jota because we don't have someone to bring on elsewhere in the park that's going to give us an attacking threat. So they've got to see that. And as much as we slag the board, we've got to believe they're Celtic supporters. And what must they have thought when Hart was targeted in the first couple of minutes? No protection by the ref. He's down. Even they must have been kind of going, this is looking bad. And Jota gets a stamp in the foot almost as soon as Hart's up. Ferguson turns round, stamps in his foot. You maybe say that's goes around in professional circles. What is it? Danny McGrain's said that was one of his hints from Tommy Gemmell. They can't run by you if they've got a sore ankle.
And who was the player, Lawrence, that he tried it on again? It was Ajax, wasn't it?
Aye, that was
Jesper Olsen.
Aye, Jesper Olsen, because the first game he roasted Danny, and Danny came off and apparently he was like, Tommy, look, Thomas like, Danny, can't he run by you with a sore ankle? Just hit him early in the next game. And Danny was like, I did, so that was it. He didn't get by me then. But Danny still says that's how you get Jesper Olsen gets moved to Man United because he could beat Danny.
He reckoned it was one of the best players he ever played against, Jesper Olsen.
Aye, well, he was saying, that time Celtic didn't look at the videos and stuff, so they were completely unaware that this guy was a flying machine. So Danny had no warning until he was by him and he'd set up a goal, and he's like, yeah. But, maybe that's why Ferguson's done that to Jota. But, if it had worked, who would be bringing on then? It is such a drop down to Johnston or Montgomery, isn't it?
Well, my frustration, and I said it to you in the first half, Lawrence, is although Hart almost did come off and Jota was able to run it off, it's maybe taking them the wind out their sails for 5-10 minutes. It's maybe taking a yard of pace off a player, although you wouldn't have known it with Jota. And I think that a lot of these refereeing decisions or what they're allowing to happen, sometimes it's tiny margins. But if you add it up over a game, so Kevin Clancy today, I didn't think had a particularly good game. But it's at that stage where if I was to say to you, who would you like to officiate our games? It would be difficult to pick 3 or 4 that you were confident with. And, that's no paranoia. It's just there's a whole list of bad decisions so far this season. And it is concerning. And I heard in the commentary that Ange Postecoglou is keen for the referees and the officials to protect our players. So I don't know if there's things going on in the background, as alluded to in the AGM, where the club are communicating with the authorities, because some of the things that are happening and going unpunished are really absurd. And I'm pretty sure a neutral perspective would be the same. I haven't had an update, actually, because we were concentrating on the game in and around what was happening with the food bank collection before the match. So if anybody in the comments wants to bring us up to date with that, I mean, it seems ridiculous, although unsurprising, that the authorities were making life difficult for people trying to make a collection for those underprivileged within our communities and our societies. So keep us updated on that. And I don't want to labour anything on the opposition, Brian, but that is a poor Aberdeen side. And when I look at the Aberdeen fans who are involved in some of the other shows on the State of Mind platform, they are willing to give Stephen Glass an opportunity to get this right. But you look at their form and it's really, really poor. For me, I was at that 9-0 game that Lawrence mentioned, but you never expect it to be easy against Aberdeen, home or away. And we've beaten them 2-1 up there and 2-1 here. But I think the scoreline today didn't give you the full story. I don't think that's a very good Aberdeen side we were up against today.
No, I don't think so. I think you can see what he's trying to do, so I understand why people want to give him a bit of time. They're kind of strong physical side, and I think they're trying to play football, but it's not happening. To be fair, I don't know if today was a great account, because I think that was more to do with how good we were. I think we dominated from start to finish, but you're spot on about the scoreline. It does not reflect at all the actual game, and we've said that a few times this season at Celtic. And I'll be honest, Stephen, Juranovic clears that off the line. I thought if we did Drew today, that would have been a travesty.
Yep.
A real travesty. Speaking of which, the refereeing in Scotland. So I've yet to speak about referees on the pod at all. But it's not just Kevin Clancy, they're all rotten. And that's no great analysis, but they're honking. There's just a complete lack of consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Like, some of the decisions are baffling. So when he books, when he allows Mikey Johnson to run on after the alleged foul Kyogo done, ball goes to Michael Johnson, he's running on, beats his man, and then he blows the whistle. And he's like, what took you so long? It was the foul in the first place, but what took you so long to blow it? We playing advantage for Celtic, only to pull it back. Doesn't make any sense. How Ramirez never get booked in for the Joe Hart thing. Some of the treatment of Kyogo was a disgrace. I put in the group chat at one point, but he was in the box, and the ball came in, the boy jumps right over the back of him.
Yes.
Yep. Surely that's a foul. No, I'm not screaming saying penalty, but any other area in the park, surely that's a foul. It's not as if Kugel's backed into him. The boys come right over the back of him, and it happened more than once. Ralston gets done off the boy Samuel as well. That was a nasty tackle, that.
That was, and by the way, I think it was mentioned in commentary, the fact that Ralston doesn't go down easy. So it was a particularly nasty one on Tony Ralston.
Because he sliced him across the front of his shins. It's a bad tackle. And this is what kind of annoys me as well. It's like, just because Ralston, is tough and won't go down easy, it doesn't mean it's not fit. He should still be getting booked for it. Doesn't matter if he goes down easy or no. They shouldn't be saying, I can handle it. Well, no, that's not right. You've got to protect him, because that can be a real bad injury. And someone in Scotland, some Scottish football is going to get hurt really badly. And it's not just Celtic. I'm not really a conspiracy theorists, I don't think they're all out to get Celtic. I just think they're all rotten.
Mm.
And I think
I'd agree with that.
For some of the performances, even with other teams, and some of the decisions, particularly the Bobby Madden one featuring Aberdeen with the boy Ojo. I mean, bizarre to say the least. So that's my 2 cents in refs. It's no news to anybody, but I just think that something's got to be done because someone's going to get badly hurt.
The point you make, though, Brian, and I think it's relevant, is you speak about 2 instances where Kyogo is taken out. First one through the back when the ball is played over. The second one is where Bates hits him in the face. Lawrence mentioned that before. I think after the Livingston incident, we actually spoke about it in the post-match, and we said that, right, he's made a meal of that. I mean, just because we're Celtic fans, we can still say he's made a meal of that, right? And he's gone down, although the boys hit him, and that's the bottom line of it. It's a penalty kick. Absolutely no doubt about it. But I asked the question after that game, will he now be targeted in the respect that the referees will be looking at him thinking that he's at it? And I think those 2 instances today prove that that is their kind of perception of Kyogo Lawrence, because those 2 instances that we've mentioned there were fouls all day, every single day, no matter what football park you're playing on. But because it's Kyogo now, I feel as though they think he's a bit of a play actor.
Well, they think it's a play actor or it's an easier decision not to give it. You know what I mean? Because I know what Brian's saying. He's through the back of Kyogo. For me, it's a penalty. He's charged right through the back of him. The rest going, give a penalty here. Nah, it's just easier to let that go. And listen, the one where he's hit him in the face, I don't know how he doesn't give it. But it was things like the first half we get a throw in. We try to steal 5 yards, take it back. They were stealing yards all day long. No more so in the last 10 minutes. It goes out nearly at the corner flag, near our touchline. So they're really limited what they could have done. And then they steal it almost level with 18 yards. They'll almost steal 15 yards and get it to throw to a guy that's almost in the byline. And you go, well, ref, you've created a situation for them where they can make this a more attacking free kick, just by not applying the rules. Or David Turnbull going to take a quick corner. There's nobody down injured. An assistant referee puts his arm round him, stop him from taking a quick corner.
Yeah.
You're like, ref, well, why can't we take a quick corner? Nobody's injured. Surely it's advantage to the attacking team. If we want to take it quick, we'll take it quick. It's just the standard, and the lack of consistency in the application of rules is really frustrating. But I've suggested before we share referees with other small nations, like for example Ireland, to keep the travelling costs down. And the Irish referees could come over here and referee, and the Scottish referees could go over there for the big games. And surely no one would have any problems with that.
We would see. I'm sure they would figure out some kind of problem with that, Lawrence. Now, Sean Keogh, McCarthy's best game. Got to agree with you there, Sean. No, just because it's a told you so moment. I do like McCarthy, but I just think even in the last kind of 15, 20 minutes, I was expecting him just to bow out at that stage, and he's got the 90 under his belt. He was brilliant. He was instrumental in that goal, opening it up for Abada. That's what he does, really. The defence splitting pass, and he did it again. But a wee bit fortunate, but, McGregor put himself and his body in the line and he got the break, and that's all you need. Jota, incredible. Want to talk about him in a second. Kyogo doesn't stop, and McGregor was class. This is what I'm talking about, Brian. I mean, we've had a few wee grumbles here in the post-match, but largely you're looking at a side here where there are absolute pivotal players in there, and we can build a really strong side around about it. And I think we're only about 4 or 5 players short of that.
Yeah, and I think actually we're well ahead of schedule, if I'm honest. I said at the start of the season, my expectations were, although I was excited, were reasonably low, because I thought it was going to take at least 3 transfer windows before we got anywhere near a strong
I remember
side.
you saying that, and I didn't want to hear it. I was thinking, no, we need to win the league this year, Brian,
But listen, it's not as if I don't want to win the league, but just looking at the shambles that was inherited behind, I thought, there's no, this is miracle stuff. If we could turn this around in a season, given the shambles, that's FIFA football, and that's career mode. And I just thought, I don't know if I can see it. I'm still, kind of in the middle here. But I tell you what, get into this transfer window, as you say, there's some real quality in that side, and regardless of some of the results, though, obviously Leverkusen result was great. The few bumps in the road, that I said on the Wednesday show that we're going to take a few black eyes over the season where we're finding our feet, and we have, and we will again. But Cameron Carter-Vickers looks an excellent signing. If we can get him permanent, that's great business.
What fee are we talking about, Brian? What's the fee that's being
Well, it's
mentioned
$2 million,
for
I think.
Carter-Vickers? Right,
$2
'cause
million,
that's a steal.
Absolutely. I think it's $2 million for him and $6 million for Jota, which you've got to do, in my opinion, right away. That'd be the first thing I'd do before January.
Do you reckon, but Brian, because that takes money out your January transfer pot, it depends how tight those agreements to buy are.
Yeah.
You know, if you can delay it because it's so tight, it's just a question of when you pay the money. Because you don't want to be pulling money away for your January pot. I don't know what the first payment would be on, what is it, 6.5, 2 million, or 6 and 2 million. But you know that could easily be at 8 million in total. You might have to pay quarter up front. That's 2 million away from
good point.
January pot.
Going to be shifting players like you like Barkas, Ayeti, Ball and goalie, probably Urigide, Liam Shaw on loan. Maybe there are a few fringe lads get a bit of money here and there. You've got to assume they're going to go, and if they do go, there's big wages. They're probably on decent wages as well. So I would still try and get them. But your point's valid, because given how we conduct our transfer business, if there's a way to find a way to save money, we probably will. But in terms of positives we're quoting players, say Cameron Carter-Vickers, I don't get the criticism of Stephen Welsh. I think he's come on leaps and bounds. I couldn't tell you how many times Starfelt's had that he's been better than Welsh. I don't see much difference in quality between the two. Juranovic, I've spoken about, I think is a really good player. Ruben Ralston's well documented. Callum McGregor gets a lot of plaudits, and I still think he's underrated. I think he's an incredible footballer. Kyogo we know about, Jota. So there's so much that you say to build on just for a couple of key areas. And then you imagine you can bring Turnbull, Rogic off the bench, Abada off the bench. There's a lot to look forward to. You just hope that they're a wee bit less risk averse than in previous windows, especially in January. Because we're talking, I think they said it's 10 games before the January transfer window opens. That's brilliant. But we've got a tendency to wait till the last day in January before we get anybody. And you know, there's a lot of football played in that time as well. So loads of positives, but still cautious.
Well, the thing as well, when it comes to January, as you said, Brian, is, you know, we do have a track record of not doing a great deal of business in January. I remember Brendan Rodgers going out, and it was mainly relying on the loan signings. That was the January we brought in Ollie Burke, if you remember, just getting bodies in the door. But I've got to say about Carter-Vickers and Jota, they've regained my faith in the loan market, because last season I was shaking my head at the loanees that we were bringing in. Couldn't wait to get them back to their parent clubs. And then you've got two that you don't want to go back to their parent clubs. Now, this might be too simplistic. Patrick McGill on Tuesday's Bulletin a few weeks ago spoke about the two games we played against Livingston and the fact that we averaged 20 crosses into the box every half. So in the two games against Livy, we flighted 80 balls into the box, and it resulted in 0 goals. And we've seen it again today, particularly with Jota, although Ralston is probably doing a better job of that than Abada when he's on. But Jota, today, on Thursday night, and last Saturday against St Johnstone, even, you know, flicking it and everything else, he's getting the balls into the box. And as much of a magician as Kyogo is, I don't think he's the type of person who's going to get on many of these cross balls. Do you think, come January, we have someone in our sights, or was that player Giakoumakis, who we felt might have had that aerial prowess? And I don't think we're changing our style here, by the way, because we're already playing the style to get somebody on the end of the crosses, and it's great to watch, but we don't have that Sutty or that John Hartson in the box to challenge the goalkeepers, Lawrence. Do you think the fact that we brought Giakoumakis in, that probably isn't a priority for us? Should it be?
Listen, his stop-start career, you know, I think we've all decided, you know, it's time for him to move on. Giakoumakis, his way, that is such a huge difference between him and Kyogo. Is he better there? Who knows what we've bought with him. He had one good season. But interestingly, the second half there, I think 10, 15 minutes into it, we noticed Jota, when he's playing the ball across, it started to be lower and a bit of interchange in the box rather than just throwing a cross in, because there isn't a lot to hit, is there, with it? I think it's something that we'll definitely look at. I'm sure Ange will be doing his stats analysis and going, we can't be having this amount of crosses and 0 goals from them, or not getting a reward for them. There's something wrong there. But again, even the players we've got running from midfield, who's good in there? I wouldn't say it was McGregor, as good an all-rounder as he is. I wouldn't say it was Turnbull or Rodgers. Maybe Beaton's all right in areas, but maybe McCarthy still to see it. But they're then at the back post. Abada looked okay when he was making the second striker.
He did, yeah.
James, I wouldn't say was great in the air, but you are struggling right through the team. Who's good in there?
Mm-hmm.
Set pieces, Welsh's done all right, isn't he? Cameron Vickers has done all right. They win their fair share, but the problem is there's no lot for the other opposition to mark in terms of when we throw a cross in, is there? Who's our danger men?
Who was the last striker, do you think, that you could count on to win these balls? Dembele, perhaps? I mean, I don't think it was the biggest strength of Edouard, but I think maybe Dembele up front, he was one of those players. But I'm thinking more of I mentioned the Ginola and Ferdinand comparison earlier on, but I'm just thinking, a Sutton type, a Hartson type. I know these guys aren't easy to find, but is that what we're trying to get in Giakoumakis? I know that quite a few of his goals last season were with the head. And I just think that it's not about changing our style, it's about bringing in a player, Brian, that fits the style.
I think so, and I suppose there's two ways of looking at it, because, say, for example, because I think you're right, I think that's why Giakoumakis was brought in, but if you say a player striker and he's the big sort of target man, defenders know they just have to mark him for crosses, right? So the flip side of saying, yeah, because we do put in a lot of crosses, could we get somebody in the end? But what Kyogo does is the defenders don't know what they're getting. If it's going to be a low cross, high cross, they're going to pull them out of position if someone's running in from midfield. I suspect it would be someone, Lawrence touched on it, that can run in from midfield into the box and go into these headers. A midfielder with a bit more presence as a number 10. I don't think it would suit us to have a kind of a traditional target man, because you kind of know it might be effective, but you kind of know what you're marking then. And I think that makes it a wee bit easier. One of the strengths for us, and again, it's the off the ball press as well. If you've got a big target man, is he going to do the running that Kyogo's going to do? Is he going to make the spaces for Jota coming in? So I think there's a lot of things to consider other than just, do we need someone that's a good header? That being said, we do seem to put a lot of aimless crosses in. Lawrence is right. Jota did start to change what he was doing in the second half, but the first half it was getting predictable towards the end. So I suspect Giakoumakis was brought in to be that guy, but I don't think we would work well with a traditional target man. I just think we rely too much on the strikers pressing and the variation in movement.
Well, another suggestion coming through here that I'd completely forgotten about was Jan Vennegoor of Hesselink. He was always good for a goal up at Tannadice. I'll never forget that one as well, when we clinched the league title. It's been a busy old afternoon for Acsom. We're 1,200 strong live on the Bulletin. Lawrence, something else you want to say there, pal?
It's just obviously the food bank fans getting fined. I believe there's protests now going on by the Green Brigade at the ground. And I'm wondering, was that the aim of finding these vans that were collecting food for Glasgow Sneedy at Christmas time? Was that the desired outcome? Because whoever's finding them, whether it's the police or Glasgow City Council, they knew there was going to be a reaction. I don't think anyone out there has thought, it's acceptable, those guys that are collecting food for people that can't afford it, ticket their vans. It's just ridiculous. And I think, on the face of it, is this anything to do with the Higgins appointment? Is this, they thought it's telling the Green Brigade, you're too much power, but we're going to almost stage a confrontation here by ticketing your vans. And this is perhaps the reaction they're looking for.
That is a developing story, as they say, Lawrence. Before we go, I just want to thank everybody for getting involved. We continue to grow the Acsom platform. We've got massive plans moving into 2022. Next weekend, it's a charity weekender. We will be announcing tomorrow who the beneficiaries of any funds raised will be. What we've decided this year is there will be one location. There'll be one place where the money goes, and I'm pretty sure every Celtic supporter will be happy to hear who the beneficiary is going to be. From time to time, we get contacted from people who watch and listen to a Celtic State of Mind asking for a wee shout out. And a boy who was in the studio recently informs me that his old man, Jim Coleman, tunes in every single day to watch the Acsom Bulletin, and he is tuning in from Melbourne. So big shout out to Jim Coleman. I hope you enjoy the show. As I say, up to 1,200 live there. We've been running a Celtic State of Mind now for 4.5 years. Although we are just about at episode 800 on the podcast. If you were to add all the post-match and the pre-matches and the half-times, we're away up at about 1,000 episodes. Every single one of those is free of charge on the YouTube channel. So get on there and subscribe. As I say, loads more content coming our way. Lawrence Conley and Brian, you've passed a late fitness test. Thank you so much for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind.